35 and I have not received no food stamps. My disability checks is on hold. My cash benefits is not coming no more. They're still pending. It is the taxpayer's job to pay for my kids to eat and for my kids to be taken care of. I have over 2,000 followers on TikTok and I can't get not one person to send me 50 cents. If you're watching a video and you can't send me nothing, I'm blocking you.
CrossroadsIRL.com.
As the partial federal government shutdown continues, Washington state health officials are warning that Washington residents could lose access to food benefits starting this Saturday, November 1st. DSHS says the benefits will end on Friday because of a lack of federal funding. Family Works is a nonprofit organization based in Seattle that provides food and family support. Joining us now is their executive director, Marsha Wright-Soika. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Hundreds of thousands of low-income Washington residents could lose access to food benefits. How would this impact Family Works' mission to alleviate food insecurity and ensure families have resources and the support they need?
If families lose access to SNAP benefits, we'll see more people turning to food banks like Family Works just to put food on the table. Most families who are receiving SNAP are already piecing together multiple ways to get enough to eat, like SNAP, WIC, food banks, and school meals. So when one piece of that safety net disappears, it puts a tremendous strain on families who are already doing everything they can to survive. And food banks in our state are already dealing with the largest number of people who need us that we have ever seen, and fewer resources to meet that need. So if the worst happens, it's going to put even more pressure on Family Works and other agencies that are at the breaking point.
Well, speaking of, how is Family Works navigating service interruptions and funding delays during this ongoing shutdown?
We're in the thick of the service interruptions and funding delays. Federal resources for food have been cut, slowed down, canceled, or completely frozen. And it directly impacts the families we serve and the food banks that are trying to meet the need. So at Family Works, what that's meant is that we have to purchase more food, more diapers, and more hygiene items just to meet the need. And even though we've been dealing with this all year, we're really afraid for what it will look like during the holidays, when you tend to see food insecurity spike because folks are losing access to school meals, or daycares and childcares are closed, and they can't rely on those meals as much. So
for context, yes, I say that I don't live in the United States, but I have been a beneficiary of the food bank program here in Canada. And when we arrived for the first time in Canada, of course, we were new and I didn't have a job. I worked now what's the word I'm looking for now? Minimum wage job. So we depended on the subsidies provided by the food banks, and the food banks are largely, at least here, are funded by the government, and then there are churches and other organizations that supply food to the food banks. And I've been a beneficiary of that. And once I was able to get a job and was able to do groceries, I didn't go back to the food banks. We used them for maybe a couple of months. And then once I had a job and I could function, I went on and I didn't go back. So I understand the value of these services. So I want to front load that before we look at the reaction of certain people who benefit from these programs, because the idea that some of them have may be concerning. Now, organizations like hers are responsible for receiving funding from the government. And occasionally, we see that whenever funding from the government drops, the resources at these locations tend to be affected. And then it is covered by other programs that are being handled by churches and other organizations and donors. And we know that happens. But this particular situation is significant because this is a protracted shortage that has been engineered by this government shutdown. And the conversations that we're hearing coming from the Democrat Party isn't encouraging. Even when the Republicans have appealed to them to come to the table to at least reopen the government so that some of these funds can be released, or at least vote on releasing the funds while the government remains shut down, the Democrats have refused to do so. Now, we're going to just listen, let her finish her background, and then we can look at the chat. Okay, I can see messages coming in the chat. I'm going to address the chat shortly. So let's just hear a little bit more from her, and then we're going to listen to individuals who are reacting to the potential of a complete unavailability of these food programs.
We see a big increase in November and December anyway, with the potential of the shutdown freezing the SNAP benefits. We are really, really concerned about what we'll see during the holidays.
Well, there were some recent federal cuts to SNAP anyway. And so what were you guys seeing from those cuts in the federal budget previously? Were you seeing an impact from that?
Yeah, we're already seeing the effects. We've seen a 28% increase in first-time food bank visitors in just the past few months. Our mobile food pantry, which is essentially a traveling food bank on wheels, has seen a 30% jump in the number of households it served. And our diaper bank waitlist has more than 150 children on it. So we've had to pause signups simply because we can't keep up. So it just shows how fragile the safety net has already become.
Yeah.
Sounds like the safety net definitely has a few holes in it at this point from your perspective. So what can we do to help? What can people do to step up and help in this process and help your organization specifically?
Thank you. We're really encouraging everyone to use your voice. So please contact your congressperson, your senators, and urge them to restore SNAP benefits by any means necessary. Please support your local food bank like Family Works. Donate cash, food, or diapers. Please sign up to volunteer or host a donation drive. And if you want information on how you can specifically help Family Works, visit our website at familyworksseattle.org or follow us on Facebook or Instagram.
All right, so I would like you to just do that. If you're watching and you want to support them, please go ahead and support them. Now, here's some reactions coming from people who benefit from these programs. Now, please keep the chats coming. I see your chats. I see it on the screen. I just want to kind of front load the conversation points, the talking points before we jump into the chat. We've divided this into about 4 segments, where we have about 4 segments today. There's an extra. We may or may not take that extra. So we have 4 segments. So I want to go through the stories in segments, and then we can discuss each story in the chat. So please keep the conversation coming. Now, here are a few people. We're going to play a few videos. Here are a few people who feel very strongly about the potential food cuts or unavailability of food from the food banks based on the government shutdown.
My kids have not eaten in 5 days. It is the taxpayer's responsibility to take care of my kids.
Trump done cut no food stamps off.
If you're poor, don't have kids, okay? If you're struggling, don't have kids. Don't bring more in. If you already have them, that's another situation. If you don't have them, don't bring any in. And if you have 2, don't go having another one. If you have 1, don't go having 2 more.
So they say 2 million is getting cut off this month in that number, in that ratio.
It's been day 5 and I have not received no food stamps. My disability checks is on hold. My cash benefits is not coming no more. They're still pending. It is the taxpayer's job to pay for my kids to eat and for my kids to be taken care of. I have over 2,000 followers on TikTok and I can't get not one person to send me 50 cents. If you're watching a video and you can't send me nothing, I'm blocking you.
All right, so that's some entitlement over there. Let's watch some more. Let's watch all of them, and then we'll react to all of them. I honestly have stuff to say, but let's go on. Okay, so here's yes, we have people of color who benefit from the food program, but we also have other people who are not people of color who also benefit from the food program.
And next week, when millions of people are going to have to resort to possibly stealing in order to feed themselves and their families, and the government complains, because they will complain about the crime rate going up, even though they're the ones who fucking did it. Make sure you point your anger at the system and the people at the top, because they're the ones who took the food away from families and poor people and starving children. The poor people just want to eat. They just want to survive like the rest of us. They just want to keep living like the rest of us. So when you see them stealing, because you will, because they're going to have to, make sure your anger isn't directed at the individual. This goes so much deeper. It's time to flip some fucking tables.
All right, so she believes that it's justified when people decide to go and steal because they can't feed themselves or their families. And let's watch one more. Okay, this video doesn't seem to be playing, so we'll skip over to this last one. Let's keep going.
I'm out of the store. So they wanted $7 for this. Mind you, I don't have food stamps anymore. They cut me off. So I only had $22 left in food stamps. So this is what I stole. Okay, they wanted $9 for this. I said, oh, I don't got $9. Then they wanted $2 for this. They wanted, sorry, it's all fucked up because it's been in my purse. $7 for this. I'm making some stuffed salmon today. These are needed. I'm not paying $7 for that. Okay, let me show you the most important thing to me. Short ribs. Take off the label so that you don't beat. Get your fucking meat. How many do you think that I got? How many short ribs is that?
All right. You get the idea. She basically decided to steal and advertise her theft. All right. So let's look at the chat. Let us look at the chat. Okay, before we look at what Hakeem Jeffries has to say about the cutoff of these funding, we have Trump original. Okay, so I mentioned the trip to Asia. Trump does not need to take this trip. Oh, sorry, Trump does need to take this trip. I acknowledge that though, but I am not a fan of these foreign adventures. Well, we're going to see the results of this last trip, and we will talk about it. We're going to see the results of this last trip and talk about it. So let's save that for when we begin to dive into the benefits of his foreign adventures. Foreign adventures for war, that's different, or intervening in conflict situations and trying to bring peace is one thing. But trying to attract foreign investments into your country and landing over 300 billion in investments on this trip at least is very encouraging. Okay, so let's move on. I volunteer at a food bank I volunteer at a food bank a lot because I believe in the mission, and it's an honorable mission. It is providing food for those who truly cannot afford it, who have fallen on hard times. Like I said, my family did benefit from a food bank when we first arrived here in North America, and once we were able to pay for our groceries and pay rent and do everything, I was still on minimum wage when I began to wean off the food bank, and eventually I got a better job and I went completely off the food bank because I knew that the food bank is a temporary measure, and if you're able-bodied and you have a family and you can take care of a family, you don't need to be a burden on the program. And so I took my family off the program, and we only went there for several months. So I appreciate the value of these programs. This is unfortunate. It is unfortunate that people that live in the States go hungry. All right, so it's sad that in a country that is so wealthy, there are people who cannot feed themselves. Now, where I might ask the question, because there are people who genuinely cannot take care of themselves. They are disabled, they are mentally incapable of taking care of themselves. Those people are the most vulnerable in the society, the orphans, the children who can't work. But when we begin to look at why the program is so burdened, you begin to find people who are able-bodied, who can and should work. Not doing so. You can see the ladies like this driving around and stealing. She could get a job, she could, but she would rather not. So I am okay. So we're going to have a very spirited conversation. I am telling you my perspective, and you can tell me your perspective. This reminds me, I need to take my whole family to volunteer at the food bank. That's a beautiful thing to do with your family. It's a beautiful thing. It's amazing that you're doing that, and I respect that. You know, that's a great thing to do. Crossroads, it seems you don't understand the public policy around this subject, and I'd like you to explain the public policy to me, because I have done some listening. I try not to speak on things I don't understand. I will tell you what I have learned, and you can tell me what's actually going on, and then we can also do some fact checking while we're at it. All right. Also, it seems you don't understand American culture around stealing. Okay. While you're telling me things I probably don't understand, I would love for you to please tell me what those policies are. What I understand about the law is that stealing is wrong. If you're capable of getting a job, you should not be stealing. If you're a first offender and your life is clearly out of whack, then, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so the law takes care of that. But stealing, everyone knows stealing is bad. Okay, if someone breaks into your home and steals from you, you don't feel great about it. There's a loss that you feel, there's pain that you feel. It is a bad thing. So I don't think it should be encouraged. Please let your voice be heard in the chat. Let's know what you think. I'm waiting for some explanation about what the policy is around these benefits, because it's been mentioned in the chat. I'm waiting for the dump on what the policy is, since it's been said I don't understand it because I'm an immigrant, and I own up to it. I'm an immigrant. Educate me, explain it to me, and then we can fact check to confirm if that is so. Let's see. And also explain to me American culture around stealing. I need to know this magical thing that that I don't understand about American culture and stealing. You are projecting your immigrant experience onto natives without understanding how our society is structured and our public policy. Great, but let me explain these things to me. It's one thing to say you don't understand. Flip the script and help me understand. Itemize what these policies are that I don't understand, and then I will get educated, and possibly we could take a look at some of the records online that either prove or disprove the points. That's called fact-checking. Right, so here's Hakeem Jeffries on TDSBC trying to pin this entire crisis on the Trump administration. Have a listen.
Johnson understands that the second Trump term has been a national nightmare, and the notion that the American people will have to experience more of what they are dealing with right now. Largest cut to Medicaid in American history, Republican healthcare crisis, threatening to starve children and seniors and veterans by cutting off SNAP. The administration is clearly trying to weaponize hunger as part of their effort to continue to try to jam their right-wing ideology and this partisan spending bill down the throats of the American people.
So Hakeem Jeffries doesn't miss out on this opportunity to point out that he's trying to jam, that the Republicans are trying to jam right-wing ideology. I don't understand what that has to do with simply voting on a bill or on a provision to fund these programs so that Americans who need these programs can be helped by these programs. Instead, it appears that the Democrats are weaponizing this situation in order to try to make the American president or the Republicans look bad. I don't understand why they don't simply do the right thing and provide these funds for these programs. The problem with this entire picture is that if you have a disagreement with the opposition or with the party in power, there are other ways to run your opposition rather than to use the American population as the pawns in the political game. That's the way I feel about it. The Republicans have said that they've called on Democrats to vote on funding so that while the shutdown is ongoing, these critical programs can be funded. The military needs to be funded. It took a private billionaire to donate money to pay salaries of servicemen. And it's interesting that that's going on. The Democrats aren't getting the memo yet. They, in my opinion, and I could stand corrected in a few weeks, in my opinion, the public sentiment isn't going their way. All right. Now, I'm going to play one more video on this, and then we will move on. Now, here's another Democrat, again, trying to pin this entire thing because the government shutdown is tied to the SNAP benefits. They're trying to pin this whole thing on the Trump administration. And then in a surprising move, CNN pushes back. Jake Tapper pushes back and says, look, what you're saying, yeah, you can say that, but the Democrats do have a hand in this shutdown and the fact that the SNAP benefits aren't funded because you've refused to vote on funding. Have a listen.
Democratic senators from New Mexico, your home state, vote to open the government so that these SNAP funds are not at risk?
Let me be clear. The administration is choosing to starve American children with money that they already have appropriated.
I'm not applauding their tactics.
The White House.
Well,
no, I'm going to just pause here. The funds that has already been appropriated is about to run out. It's about to run out, and the Republicans have been asking for another vote on funding to be had. This clean bill is a Biden bill. It's not a Republican bill. But the Democrats have chosen to hold the country hostage in a bid to. They're hoping that this turns out into a black eye on the Republicans. And to be honest, I don't think it's going to work out that way. But let's see. If there is a crime spike, if this plays out exactly the way some of us are seeing it play out, we're going to have people hitting the streets next week, breaking into stores, attacking establishments like Walmart to loot establishments. And then eventually, when they're done with that and the government remains locked down and the likes of Hakeem Jeffries and this Democrat continue with the rhetoric that they're pushing out there, these vandals are going to begin to visit homes. So it's not an issue of us pointing fingers. It's about what is the right thing to do. And the lies or the excuses, whatever you want to call them, have to stop. And funding has to be released. I think that's a simple compromise that anyone would be willing to have. And then you can go back to, okay, the government is still shut down. We need this thing that we're talking about and continue the debate.
This is a choice by the White House.
This
They
is
are
also,
choosing to
Congresswoman,
cut
this is
off
also a
food
choice
assistance.
by Senate Democrats
No,
to
it
not
is
vote to
not.
open the government. Yes, it is.
The
I understand
Senate-
why they're doing it. They're doing it because they want Medicaid funds restored. They're doing it because they want Obamacare premiums to be extended past the end of the year. I understand the reasoning.
Sir, let me just be clear. The money for contingency plans is sitting there. That is why the states are suing. The White House is withholding funds from
2 to 3
children
weeks worth
to
of
have
SNAP funds.
food.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it may not be a big deal to you, but let me
It is
tell
a
you
big deal
that
to
for
me.
the grandparents, for
It is a
grandparents
big deal to
that
me.
literally are feeding their children,
My point
to
is that
not
it's a
have
short-term
money
solution.
in those accounts.
It's
It
a
doesn't
short-term-
matter. At the end of the day, people need to be able to feed their families, and Saturday is when those funds
If you
run
feel
out,
so
and we are
strongly,
fighting to get
why
that
not
funding.
ask the Senate Democrats from New Mexico to vote to open the government so that the SNAP funds...
Sir, I am here in the House of Representatives. It is shut down. I am fighting to get the government reopened. I am fighting to get funding put back into SNAP that is already existent, and I am fighting for the American people. I am here. But show me a single Republican that is here. Not a single one is here to make sure that Americans are fed on Saturday. That is why I am here.
All right, I wish she took us on a tour around the Capitol building to every Republican's office to prove that there's no Republican there. So she can grandstand all she wants. The simple question is, why won't you guys vote to reopen the government? You need 60 votes in the Senate to reopen the government. All Republicans have voted for except one, Rand Paul. He has refused to vote for the reopening of the government because of his ideological stand, which everyone knows about. But we need at least 6 or 7 Democrat votes to reopen the government, and none of them have agreed to vote. Maybe Fetterman agreed to vote. I can't recall if he did, to vote in favor of reopening government, but he has been very vocal about his position about the Democrats' stand on things. Now, if you're watching, please consider leaving a comment in the chat. There's a very spirited conversation happening in the chat. Please engage. You're welcome to to be a part of the conversation, and consider subscribing, liking, and sharing the video. It helps out a whole lot. Now let's go to the chat. All right, so she's using the Democrat talking points, and there's no hope that they're going to do anything reasonable to reopen the government at this point. Right, so back to the chat. So we're responding to comments in the chat. Now here is the public policy. There are pools of demographic populations that are managed in North America. It is not usually discussed in the open because there are undesirables. Okay, managing those populations is part of public policy. Okay, let's take the first group, Native Americans, also known as First Nations or American Red Indians. You may or may not be aware that for centuries the public policy has been to carefully manage this group. It is wrong. Okay, is that your statement? It is wrong, but it has been part and parcel of public policy. I know about the policy on the Red Indians or on the Native Americans. I do. There's active population management with certain tools, including food stamps to manage certain groups. It is not simply people relying on it till they get a job. Okay, I understand that bit. There's a lot more to this than the surface narrative that Americans are lazy and don't want to work. No. I'm not saying that Americans are lazy and don't want to work. That's not the narrative that I'm pushing. What I'm saying is, yes, you're right. I'm looking at this from an immigrant's perspective. You're right. And several weeks ago, I made a statement on this show and I said, I do not accept the fact that immigrants can come in and suddenly have the ability to run for office. I said at least 2 generations of immigrants, second generation immigrants, should be allowed to run for office. This is why. Because there are things we don't know. There are things that we don't understand. And if we come with our immigrant perspectives on things, it takes a long time to lose those perspectives. Okay, most of us don't lose our accents. There are ideologies that we come with, or there are ideas or the way of doing things that we come with that we struggle to shake off. So that's why I said a couple of weeks back, let's say second generation immigrants who were born in the United States, raised by a first generation immigrant who understands the history and the culture of the United States, then they can run for public office. That's what I said. And a lot of people don't like that idea, but I know the weaknesses that we have as immigrants, and I know how it could affect public policy and things like this. I didn't know about the undesirables, but I do know that there was a program started in the 60s to cater to minorities, and a lot of people believe that program that was championed by LBJ is responsible for the breakup of the family unit in the black community. And many people who are even of the black community don't agree with that program, the welfare program. I listened to a creator called Myron Golden. Myron Golden told a story of when he took his wife, when he wasn't wealthy, he was poor. He took his wife to the hospital to attend to their baby. And the nurse, talking to his wife in his presence, told her, look, you will get more benefits from the government if he wasn't in the picture. And that means that the policies of the welfare policies state that if a woman is by herself, she gets more support from the government. And a lot of women take that route. So there are a lot of objections to that entire program, and I have heard those objections, and those objections are coloring some of my perspectives on this situation. So please, I thank you for clarifying the public policy on these benefits. Now I'm more educated and I understand the position. However, I still do believe that more should be done to ensure that people who are able-bodied, who are able to and should work, should plan to get off these programs. I've seen people who were on the programs, not just me, but Americans who were on the programs, and they said that once they were able to get off the program, they got off the program. But there are people who are addicted to welfare, and they do need to get off those programs. And this has nothing, like, it's incidental. This conversation is incidental. It just happens to have come with the package. But I'm not saying that I didn't start this conversation to talk about how they're lazy Americans. No, we're talking about what's in the news. All right. So let me know your thoughts in the chat, please, or in the comment section. I'll pause to let you yeah, I've digested it. Yes, of course, LBJ used many tools to manage that population group. Yeah.
Subscribe.
Thanks for watching, liking, and sharing this video. Please subscribe, leave a super thank, and join my membership to keep me doing this. A huge thank you to my supporters listed on the screen. Thank you for your donations and membership.
Thanks for watching.